Welcome to the core.
Empowering and enlightening.
And here we are back at Huntley's 101.5 FM. The year is 2019. Happy New Year and hello, Jack.
Happy New Year.
So, what an exciting time. We're heading into a new year. Right now, there is a little bit of a hangover from yesterday's Bears loss, which we're not going to talk about. That was painful enough.
That's bad.
But, have I ever disappointed with the quality of guests that we've had on this program?
Nope.
Well, guess what? We have another fascinating guest today that I'm very excited. I'm going to give you a quick background. So, actually, Jack, I don't know if you remember this or not. I've talked about it a little bit, but several years ago, I was actually involved in the MMA industry, not as a fighter, but on the.
I see you fighting, that'd be great.
Yeah, but we it was a mouthwear product that we were marketing into the industry, and it was fun. And in doing so, I ended up making a lot of contacts within that industry. One of whom became a very, very good friend. Her name is Amber. She's down in Florida.
Oh, okay.
She's actually a writer. She's fantastic. She's great. But recently, she introduced me to this gentleman who, the first time we talked on the phone, we just hit it off. We just kind of clicked, and we were on the same page. And I said, I got to get you on the show. So let me just tell you a little bit about who this individual is. First of all, his name is Clifford Starks. For some people, that name may ring a bell. He actually has fought professionally in mixed martial arts. He actually started out. Jake, did you follow MMA a little bit?
My friends do the work.
Do you remember a promotion? It was out of Arizona. It was called Rage in the Cage.
It does sound familiar.
Yeah, so they were actually pretty big. I'm actually, and I'm sure he'll be happy to tell us maybe a little bit about where they're at right now, because I actually have stopped following the industry a little bit. But that's where he was fighting in the Rage in the Cage. And quickly from there ended, I know you've heard of this, UFC.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, had a few fights there, and then and actually also had several in Bellator. Okay, has had a great professional career, a 14-5 record as a pro, which is I mean, for me, I would never make it pro, but if I did, I'd probably be 0-1, and then my career would be over. But beyond all that, what's really awesome about Clifford is it doesn't just end there, right? He's actually a motivational speaker. He's also a life coach, and he's a personal trainer on top of having fought at the highest level of mixed martial arts. He's actually been given the privilege to help many people find their success, to find their happiness. And he simplified it in such a way that makes for a great conversation for us today. And it's from implementing 5 very simple points that are very, very important. And we're going to talk about that today. So without any further ado, please welcome to the program, Mr. Clifford Starks. Clifford, welcome to the program. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me on. I definitely appreciate that.
So
I appreciate the introduction as well. Thank you.
Yeah, and I'm sure I probably sold you short because I know based on our conversation, I know that you are just like a wealth of experience and a wealth of wisdom. So I'm just glad to have you. So, like I mentioned, we were talking about those 5 points, and we'll get into those in a second. But why don't we just start? If you could just talk a little bit about your journey and how you've ended up where you are today, right now.
Yeah, well, I've always had a love for people and a love for the ability that people had within them. And my biggest thing was I used to get bullied when I was younger, and I ended up finally standing up for myself. And so I actually suplexed my bully, the first bully that I had. And to say the least, he wasn't a bully anymore. We ended up becoming really good friends. And from there, my confidence just kind of skyrocketed into I could be whatever I wanted to be, and having some good family values behind it as well, just taking me to a position and a place that, yeah, there's greatness in me, and I can do great things. And so I just started paving a way and doing all the things that I wanted to do in my life. I didn't look back. I think sometimes people look at their lives and wish they would have done more, or wish they would have changed some things. And it really comes down to the only thing you can really focus on is the present moment. You can't go back into the past. You can only mold your future, and you can learn from your past, but you can act in your present, and you can reach for an amazing future. And my biggest thing was I want to help as many people as possible, because I know how good of a feeling it is when you actually not only help yourself but help others.
Right. Now, I know that you know, when I brought you on, I said that you have this system of 5 points that you enjoy talking about and you help so many people with. And and I love them all because, and as we'll talk, these are tried and true. I actually remember when I was probably in high school, maybe in college, and I was introduced to a book, and this is probably the first personal development book that I remember reading, and it was called, and you know it, The Magic of Thinking Big.
Yeah.
And that is your first big point.
Yes.
If you could expand on that a little bit, because that is so huge.
Well, it's funny because they say think outside of the box. And sometimes what people do is they think outside of the box a little bit, and then they just create a bigger box. Like, go really, really effing big. Go as big as you possibly can. Don't settle for small things in life, because you have to shoot for the moon, you land in the stars. That's what Les Brown says.
Right.
And that's so true. I think people sell themselves so short because they make such small goals in life, and they knew they had more in them, but they were afraid to even attempt it. But when you attempt things, that is where the growing happens. And you're not going to grow if you don't think big. You'll never think big enough. I think, like, one thing people have to do is they have to get a coach, because a coach usually sees more in an individual than the individual even sees in themselves.
Absolutely. It's funny. We were talking the other day. I recently hired a personal trainer, right? So he's my personal coach as far as lifting and training and all that. And what you just said is so true, because when I first went, we had an assessment, right? Like the first time that we started. And he's like, this is just our assessment. We're going to see where you're at so I can create a plan for you. And he saw so much of me. He's like, you don't understand this. And he told me what he's going to have me doing within 90 days. And I couldn't see it. I could not see that even being possible.
Yeah.
And here we are now, just about through the first 90 days, and I've gone through a transformation. And when I say it, like, who would have thought? And he'll look at me, he'll be like, I knew it from the start.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, you'd be surprised what you could do. And that's the thing. They say take it slow, but honestly, think about a year. A year is not that long of a time. We look at it and say, oh, it's 365 days, I don't know, and then we'll create whatever reality we need to create to go back into our shell. But the truth of the matter is, if you just implement some small things here and there, you'd be surprised how far you could go within a year's time, or like you even said, within 3 months.
Right. Give me an example. Like, so if you could, without getting into too much detail, with some of your clients, like, how have you implemented the whole thinking big concept and making an impact for them?
Well, it really does start with going after their dreams. So I started off as a personal trainer. And one of the hardest things as a personal trainer, it's not getting people in shape who are already coming in and are already in decent shape. It's getting people in shape who are in horrible shape. They're obese, they have health problems, because they've built in habits to be that way.
Right.
And so I got to reverse those habits. And I usually attack it indirectly, because if you attack something so directly with bad habits, they're going to find a reason why they need to maintain those habits one way or another, whether it's I don't have the time, I don't have the energy, I can't do this. They'll find whatever they need. So the way I do it is I ask them what they want. I call it active listening. And when a person starts talking about what they are passionate about and start trying to actually go for their passions again, it revitalizes the soul. And with a revitalized soul, you're going to want to eat better. You're going to want to take care of your body better. You're going to do all of those things by nature. But I don't put the cart before the horse.
Okay.
It's what drives you. Where is your why? What is your purpose on this planet? And then when you find your purpose, everything else is going to come together from there.
And that's really where that moves you into what your second big point is, which is you still have to have a plan, right? So you can't
Absolutely.
You can't just think big and say, "Hey, I'm going to be this, Mr. Olympia."
Absolutely.
Right.
Yes, you have to have and I say short plans and long-term plans. You need both. And you need to have the right people to help guide you. Just as you said, you have a personal trainer and he puts you through a system. He puts you through a tactical and strategic system for 3 months.
Right.
It wasn't something that you just swung on yourself and said, I'm going to think really big. And so having that plan not only comes from you having the plan, but knowing other people who know how to implement the correct plan to get you to where you need to go, so that your goals aren't too audacious. Because if you're going out and you're not doing anything that you're supposed to do and you're just working hard, you'll get there, but it's probably going to take you 4 times as long.
How rigid do you have to be? Because and one of my things is that I tend to be oftentimes all over the board. Right, I do get things accomplished. I do, I do move in the right direction. But perhaps oftentimes not as quickly as I would like to or not as efficiently as I would like to. But what I've found is that I also can't be psychotic about how perfect I am with every little detail. And this is me, right? So, and I've actually coached others on this, is like, if you can't be that rigid and you don't have that much discipline, you still need to have the vision. As far, kind of like what you're saying, think big, know where you're going. And your path might, it might be a little squiggly on the way there. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. Everyone's path is going to be squiggly. It really depends on how quickly you want to get there personally. But let's say I tell people to write it down, write their plan down. And it doesn't have to be, you want a specific plan. You do want specifics. But the plan isn't to say that this is the plan I wrote down and this is how it's going to happen, guaranteed. The plan just puts you in the motions and the steps that you need to take, that you need to implement in your life. Think about it this way too. Like I go, have a long-term plan, but leave it somewhere where you can look at it from time to time, but you don't need to look at the long-term plan all the time. You know it's there. Right. Focus on the short-term plans. Act on those. And you'll get to where you need to go. But just act on those in the present moment. Because sometimes we do think too long-term, too.
And that is, I guess, because then you can actually make the adjustments if you're frequently revisiting where you're at, right? They say, like if you point a plane in a direction toward, from LA to New York and you turn it a couple of degrees, you're going to end up wherever in Cuba, whatever. But it's the same thing, is that you do have to make those adjustments on the way, because otherwise, even if you're just slightly off and doing just some certain little things wrong, that might take you drastically off course.
Mm-hmm.
So you've thought big, then you've designed a plan, but no plan is anything if you're just going to go ready, aim, aim, aim. You do have to fire, which means you have to take action. What I love is your third point, that it's not take action, it's take, and I underline the word, take intense action.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's talk about that. That's kind of fun.
So intense action means to go 100%. You're going all out. And I think sometimes people, they want to dip their toe in the water, like, oh, well, let's see. And so if you do half steps, you're going to get half results. And intense action doesn't necessarily even need to mean big action. I've had clients who have lost over 100 pounds within less than a year. And we're not focused on the 100 pounds we're looking to lose. We're looking to lose a pound or two the first week. Mm-hmm. That's what it comes down to, is just acting intensely in the moments that you're in. And when you act intensely in the moment, your body it adjusts to the new habits that you are creating. That's how you create a habit. You don't create a habit by half-assing it. And I think that's the problem with, You hear it takes 21 days to create a habit. Well, that's 21 days of knowing that if you know that you're going to get that habit in 21 days, you're not really taking it seriously enough. Because we all know after 21 days, it's just kind of like, I don't feel any different. But if you take it day in and day out, it's a moment. So habits are built in the moments that we're in. So if we're intense within the moment, our bodies will recognize and adjust to the intensity that we're putting into the project that we're working on. It's going to adjust to that new moment. Whereas when we do a 21-day thing, and we kind of, in our heads, we have this thought that it's going to magically just become an ingrained habit, and that just doesn't work.
And, and with that, maybe you could tie it in with your career, because I know, and, for anybody who's listening who hasn't followed MMA, haven't been in the industry, I met a lot of these competitors personally. And there is a level of intensity there. There is a level of discipline there for the people who are serious, that are actually fighting.
Oh, yeah.
Just the fact that it's not even, a lot of people know UFC, right? Everyone knows that name. But fighting professionally, there are professional circuits all over the country. And even if you can make it as a pro into some event that is, a sanctioned event, that is a pro event, you are already at the top of the top. And then for you, in your case, you're talking about you got yourself quickly fighting on the biggest of all stages. You're in the big octagon for the UFC. And how did tie in your intense action from the beginning? How did you create that? How did you say, this is where I want to end up? And have that vision, and what were the disciplinary steps you took to get there? Which, for somebody else, it might be, hey, I want to get into college. It could be anything else. But what were your steps? How did you do that?
It's funny because with intense action, like I said, the plan, having the right people around you is good to have. But you don't always get those options. And having intense action means you're just going to give it 100% every chance you get. You're going to give it 100%. And 100% can be hard to give. Especially, you're not always going to feel like giving 100%. And that's when you have to say, I'm going to try and give 110%, or I'm going to try and give 120%. Because all of these steps, they work intangible with each other. They need each other. So just having the big thought, like thinking as big as you possibly can, is going to drive you into intensity, because you're going to look for something bigger. There's more out there, and that's why you're going to give it your all. My coach honestly didn't think I was going to get where I got as fast as I did. And that was kind of funny to me, because the coach is supposed to propel you there, not tell you what you're not going to do.
Right. Yeah, that is right, because I was going to add that, is that, when you say, when you feel like you can't do it, when you feel like you can't go that 100%, that's when the coach really matters, right? That's when the coach, you're going to have that person in your corner that has that faith in you that will help push you over the top.
Yes. And so it's, I'm kind of a crazy subject, because the reason I do give 100% is I can't tell someone else to give 100% if I'm not giving 100%. And what's funny is people, they get it when they're around it. You know what I mean? Like they know what I'm talking about. I don't have to explain it, because I show it with the actions that I do.
You live it, yeah.
Yes. And so since I show it with the actions that I do, that means like, oh crap, now I get it. Like sometimes they think my life was just given to me, because that's what it's going, when you implement these 5 steps, that's what's going to happen. You're going to push through so many obstacles that people are going to think, oh, well, you were just born into success. No one's born into success. The successful just know how to implement the steps.
Yeah, and that's what I was, saying that earlier about the simplicity of your 5 steps is beautiful. And if you can understand it, it really is. These steps, they're principles, right? If you do it, it will work, right? I mean,
absolutely.
And that's what's really cool about it, is that this is stuff that anybody can implement. And that's why I was excited to have you on the show with this too. So, and that takes actually what you just said takes us into the fourth one, and this is definitely worth talking about. And that is you got to have faith. Now,
absolutely.
Faith is a word that we hear the word a lot, but to really understand it, and I think you probably more than anybody, especially, I mean, I know you've been in situations where, you know, when you're in the octagon where it's like, I don't have another ounce left in me. And it happens to anybody, the greatest fighters, though, everybody, right? And yeah, you got to have faith. So define that. What is faith to you? You know, there's many ways that people can interpret that.
Yeah, I say faith is just knowing it's going to happen. Like, just there's no question behind it. You know things are going to work out the way you said they're going to work out. And it's an absolute must, because I don't think people realize how powerful that really is. I think I told you about the turkey in the oven. If you're cooking a turkey for 6 hours and you know it's going to cook within 6 hours, you're not worried about anything else. You go about what you need to go about with. But if you don't know the turkey's going to cook within 6 hours and you're staring at that turkey wondering, is the oven hot enough? Is it really cooking? It doesn't look like it's cooking. I don't think anything's happening. It's taking too long. 2 hours feels like a lifetime. It feels like forever.
Right.
And so when people don't have that faith and that knowing, they start questioning and they start doubting and they start half-stepping. And when they do that, then the product it's not a finished product.
Okay, so with that, we're going to go to your fifth point. And this one, I don't know which one's my favorite because they're all good, but the fifth one is, and this is one that, man, and you know, I got a few kids, and this is one that I don't know how many times I've said to them over and over about everything in your life. Good, bad, ugly, indifferent. You will live a happier life if you do this one thing, and that is take responsibility.
Yes, absolutely. That changes everything. That is the difference between, so all the steps are important, but this fifth step is the absolute must, because nothing else will work without it. And you have to take responsibility of your own life, of your own destination. Because if you go external and you just think things happen for the sake of happening, then you're just kind of...
You're surrendering your power. You're surrendering your power.
You're just letting it go wherever it goes. Versus if you know and you say, this is up to me. I need to make the change. I need to implement these things. I know what I'm capable of. Then you're going to do the necessary steps. And so that doesn't even necessarily mean, I'll give you a perfect example. I had one specific client who was a drug addict. And I told him, you have to take responsibility. Take responsibility doesn't mean go on a mountain and yell out, I'm the greatest and I can't be stopped from this drug. But take responsibility means put yourself in the correct position to be successful. Put yourselves in your most correct positions to be successful.
I love that you say you can't scream from the top of the mountain. I was thinking of that, that episode of The Office where Michael's like, I declare bankruptcy. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I try to be very specific on. Take responsibility. Take responsibility means you can do something. You can do something. What that thing is, you need to figure it out, but you can. It's like I say, turn your obstacles into opportunities. And the more you do that, the more opportunities you're going to see. It might be hard for someone who's not used to doing that at first, but as they do it more often, they're going to see opportunities everywhere. They're going to see opportunities they never saw before.
And if I could even add, you know, with that is when you assess any failures that you've had, one of the greatest questions to ask is, what was my responsibility in that failure? How could I have done things differently? What could I learn from that?
Yes, absolutely.
Which is a huge, you know, a great way to grow is understanding what your responsibility is in situations that were adverse, that did not work out the best for you. So, So, okay, so we've got, and I'm going to recap them here. So here's our 5 points. Number 1, think big. Number 2, have a plan, both short-term and long-term, and make sure you write it down. Number 3, take intense action. Give it everything that you've got. Number 4, have faith. Know that it's going to happen. Know that you're going to accomplish whatever your goal is. And number 5, take responsibility. As we draw to a close over here, tell us a little bit about what you're doing with these 5 points right now. I know you have a motivational speaking career that you're working on. If you had a website or anything, please feel free to share it with us too.
Yeah, so I have my website, cliffordstarks.com, and I also am promoting on my YouTube channel as well. I just want to see as many people get as successful as possible. The really cool thing about human beings, I think, we all just want the best for ourselves, but at the same time, we do have a genuine care for one another, and I think that can get lost sometimes because we're so busy trying to worry about ourselves. But if you implement these 5 steps, it really puts you in a position not only to be successful for yourself, but to be successful for your group as well. It's one of those things that, as they say, a rising tide brings in all ships. And when people do have that kind of group mentality, they're going to do their best to constantly grow and constantly have the group around them grow. And if a person's in a cancerous or a dark situation, if a person's a dark person, they're probably not going to be around a person implementing these type of steps. And that's okay. You know, they have to do what they have to do. They have to go through their own growing pains. And you just wish them the best, and you keep doing what you need to do, knowing that you're going to get on the top of your mountain.
Well, Clifford, this has been an awesome conversation. Absolutely, you're an inspiration. Thank you so much for breaking it down with us. This has been great.
Thank you for having me on, Jake.
And for all of our listeners, again, it's cliffordstarks.com, exactly as it sounds. If you want to get a little bit more information, I'm sure you're going to get some good information there. Give him a call. Clifford's a great guy. I'm sure he's going to love to talk to you as well. And this has been yet another episode of The Core on Huntley's 101.5 FM. Be sure to also visit us at Core One Training on Twitter, and of course our website, core1.com. Remember, that's core with a Q, O-R-E, and the number 1.com. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful day.